Everything went wrong for the Magic in 2025. 5 games into the season, their best player, seemingly poised for an All-NBA campaign, tore his oblique and would end up missing almost half the season. Their second best player in Franz Wagner would end up going on his best stretch of his career in his absence, only to suffer the same injury 5 weeks later. Yet despite the injuries which plagued the Magic throughout the season, they managed to win 41 games, and by the postseason, showed a resilience that almost left an impression they were 1 or 2 pieces away from contending with the best teams in the Eastern Conference. We saw them take a game from the Celtics, almost 2, despite not having a single player who shot above 35% from 3 at the end of the season. Throughout all of their growing pains, the Magic were a competent team, in spite of being the worst three-point shooting group since the 2012 Charlotte Bobcats, a team which went 7-59. There's a clear identity with this Magic team that separates them from most other young squads, and it's that their defense has been one of the very best groups in the entire NBA. And the player who spearheads that in Jalen Suggs played 3 games in the calendar year of 2025. And you think about the possibility of adding him back healthy, with Desmond Bane replacing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and it's safe to say that the Magic next season can surprise a lot of different people. And so in this video, we're going to highlight just how well Desmond Bane fits into the landscape of what the Magic are trying to build, and why the return they gave up for him might just be worth it. When talking about the Magic, there's one thing which is equally true. As good as their defense has been, their offense has remained one of the NBA's worst for a very long time. And a big reason for that is partly because of their guard play, with a lack of dynamic shot creation and consistent shot making from their guard spots. Jalen Suggs a year and a half ago shot 39% from three-point land. Now, of course, this season he took a step back, and it was a small sample size due largely to injuries. Even with that in mind, it's been over a decade since the Magic have had a true all-star caliber guard. And moving from the West to the East, Desmond Bane does have a chance to get that type of recognition. Now, before we talk about what Bane brings to the table, it's important to kind of highlight what the Magic are giving up in a trade package which kind of blew away most NBA fans. 4 first-round picks, all unprotected. A future pick swap in 2029 with KCP and Cole Anthony. When you talk about the picks, it's not like this is the Suns or the Bucks that have high risk potential due to the uncertainty of their future. With Orlando, their 2 best players are 22 and 23, and the majority of their core is on the right side of 25. And despite Paolo and Franz at one point both being out the lineup, when Paolo came back in, they were 22 and 17, showcasing even when things are truly going wrong for this team, they're still a squad that finds a way to stay afloat. And it's for that reason that I'm not losing sleep about those future first-round picks. Now, there's an important thing to note here. One of those first-round picks is, in fact, attached to a Suns swap right in 2026. That's something you should take up with John Hammond and Jeff Weltman, not me, because I would have valued that asset quite a bit more. Now, part of what made Bane such an appealing player to this front office, I believe, is what he brings to the table and what he doesn't take away. For a long time, most NBA fans are clamoring for this team to get a point guard, a traditional floor spacer, and a tone setter, someone like maybe Anthony Simons, who is mincemeat on switches and the half-court look defensively. Not only does that make them worse defensively, but it completely changes the integrity of this team, where now there's always someone teams can exploit and hunt in the closing lineups of games. It changes the way Orlando wants to beat teams. With Desmond Bane, sure, he's not the lightest player on his feet, but at 6'5", with one of the strongest upper bodies in the game, and those T-Rex arms, I mean, I know he's got a shorter wingspan, but when talking about Bane, he's one of the strongest players in the game. Putting the opposing team's 4th to 5th best offensive player on him, on the perimeter, he's going to be more than competent, and he can be a positive, especially when he's healthy, not playing through injury. But when you talk about what the newest addition brings in on the offensive end, it changes the entire game. Bane in the last 3 years has taken on a larger responsibility. A year ago, Ja Morant missed nearly the entire season. While this last season, the offense catered less to Morant and more to their supporting stars. And as a result, he was taking more pull-up threes than he was off the catch, while roughly making 36 to 37% over the last couple of seasons. But when you talk about what he brings to Orlando, a team that has 2 jumbo-sized playmakers in Franz and Paolo, it's safe to expect him to start taking more shots off the catch, where in not one season has he shot below 40% from beyond the arc. It's kind of what KCP was supposed to bring when they signed him to a 3-year deal, yet he shot 30% from 3 up until March. And now you add in Jalen Suggs to replace the GOAT third point guard and Corey Joseph. You can't underestimate the night and day difference between those two backcourts. But Bane's not just a shooter, and I think what gets misunderstood is that he's a player with the right usage who could have an all-star caliber campaign. This is somebody who averaged 19, 6, and 5 this last year on 60% true shooting on a loaded offensive team. In transition, he's an absolute bowling ball. He reminds me a little bit of Josh Hart with a full head of steam, and the Magic are a team which I'll always criticize them for this, don't play nearly enough in transition, and have played at one of the slowest paces in the NBA. But in order to play with more pace, you need players who can run and open up the lanes. That's exactly what Desmond Bane does as one of the best corner shooters in the NBA. But what gets me really excited is just how much Bane brings to the table in the half-court offensively, because he's far from your traditional knockdown three-point shooter. If you dare to run him off the lane, in 2 of the last 3 seasons, he's made 45 and 46% of his mid-range jump shots, which are ranked in the 80th and 73rd percentiles, respectively, for his position. On top of that, after Devin Booker, Bane is the best playmaker for his position, bottom line, in the entire NBA. Not only averaging 5.5 assists the last 2 seasons, but showing a clear propensity to make the right decisions by generating a good amount of paint touches. His playmaking does remind me a little bit of Malcolm Brogdon, and much like Brogdon, Bane's all-around efficiency is some of the most impressive in the entire league. Getting a player who could average 20 a night on 48, 39, 86 shooting is very impressive. And like Brogdon, I believe Bane will be at his best when he's not one of the primary creators, but rather somebody who can toggle between on and off ball usage to get the best of his overall play style. In the last couple of years, it's been quite clear with Paolo and Franz playing together, the Magic have not had the personnel to help the two of them develop and play amongst each other quite well. In fact, this last season, this became a huge talking point for why a lot of people were pretty pessimistic about Paolo. When Franz was on and Paolo was off, albeit this was a very limited sample size, the Magic posted a plus 10.2 point differential. Now, I don't know about you, but I believe the Magic's star wing duo is the closest thing we've seen to the Boston Celtics' Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, except they're 2 more scheme-specific players due to their shooting being more raw, which makes it a little bit more challenging to find the right 3 guys to play alongside them to close the lineup. With Jalen Suggs and Desmond Bane, you immediately have to. And I believe for the longest time, what's held back the two of them from gaining some symmetry together is the fact that you haven't had the requisite spacing for them to properly play one-on-one without seeing 2 or 3 defenders. If Paolo's on the ball and Franz is off, teams will gladly leave Franz for an open 3-point look, which we saw manifest in the postseason. And that's what leads me to how well this move is going to age in the Magic. It comes down to Franz and Paolo getting better. Franz must become a respectable 3-point shooter the way he was his first 2 years. And I'm not asking for him to hit high 30s, merely 35 to 36% from beyond the arc on a steady diet of open 3-point looks. And it's going to come down to him breaking out the yips, because he's shown a propensity to hit shots with confidence before, but mechanically it's clear that he might need a little bit of surgery. In Paolo's case, he should become a larger point of focus for this offense, and I believe in adding in 1 more 3-point shooter, it makes it a little bit more plausible. We could see some Paolo at the 5, playing more as a roll man and punishing play finisher. As far as it goes for this season, the biggest X factor for this group is going to be the play of the front court. Mo Wagner coming off torn ACL, Wendell Carter having a very disappointing 2025, but showing a little bit of life at the end there. And then Goga Bitadze has been a steady backup, but is not someone you're going to close games with on a consistent basis. When I look at this Orlando group, they have their 3 homegrown pillars in Jalen Suggs, Franz, and Paolo. And I believe Desmond Bane slots just perfectly in without taking anything off the table defensively, only adding to their playmaking. Once again, I don't think you can overlook just how poor the supporting cast was last year. And now that 2 of those players have been massively upgraded off of, one due to trade, another due to injury, is an encouraging sign that the Magic will see the fruits of this trade pay off with a big jump next season. And I would be remiss if I didn't shout out 2 players off the bench who I'm incredibly high on, the first of which being Tristan da Silva, someone who had a solid rookie season but didn't have a whole lot of opportunity. I liked him a lot coming out of Colorado. I believe he has a better skill set as a shooter than the numbers would suggest, and he could be a very good backup to Franz stylistically. While on the other side, Jonathan Isaac rounds out this front court, which is one of the deepest in the entire NBA, and is 16 to 20 minutes a night. And to wrap a bow on this the teams which last the longest in the postseason are the ones who are filled with the most versatile, complementary players. Guys who don't limit teams in any one way, but have B-plus skill sets everywhere down the board, much like the Celtics last year and the Pacers this season. With Orlando, they just get one step closer to that with this move for Desmond Bane. And at the same time, the notion that this team needs a traditional point guard to set the offense into a calm state, to me, is overrated. The luxury of having two supersized playmakers who can play off the dribble with their skill set necessitates having that smaller guard who oftentimes is going to take something away on the other end of the floor. With Derek White and Drew Holiday, you had yourself two good passers, but it wasn't like they needed to run the offense because it was built to maximize Jason Tatum as their lead engine. With Magic, the same should be said with Paolo Banchero. But the biggest concern is going to be health. With Desmond Bane, I would argue that's his biggest blemish as a player, and Jalen Suggs is someone who has dealt with a lot of lower body injuries with how hard he plays night to night. But regardless, the Magic are poised to be one of the most improved NBA teams next season. And for an offense which felt painful at times to witness, it seems to be getting on track to becoming very pleasing to watch.